So I grew up in churches listening to handbell choirs all the time, and I'll admit that I had very little appreciation for the instrument. But now, as I'm an old man, I've realized it actually is a beautiful sound. And so I borrowed this set of Shilmeric bells, and I love the sound, and I wanted to find a way to use them for my Paper Trail album. So I sampled each bell 3 different times, kind of a quiet, a medium, and loud, using this microphone. It's a U47 clone built by my friend Joel Cameron, who has a company called Rascal Audio. He makes preamps and EQs, fabulous designer of gear, and these mics are extremely special. He only made a handful of them. I happen to have 2, and they sound fantastic. I recorded it out in my hallway because it's a bit more live and ambient out in that space, and even from simply 24 inches away, there's still a decent room sound to the bells. I recorded 3 velocity layers for each sound. So here's an example of those 3 layers. We have a quiet, medium, and a loud. The loudest layer is very aggressive, but I went ahead and left it in the instrument because there are moments where you might want a little bit more bite, a little bit more of an aggressive sound to help cut through the mix. As always, reverb is our friend. I will often use the Valhalla Vintage Verb or the Room Verb, but this time I use the FabFilter Pro R with about a 3-second decay time. You'll notice that there is quite a bit of low frequency energy and some low mids that might benefit from being carved out, especially if you wanted to cut through the mix a little bit better. In order to control the attack of the sound, which can be a bit pronounced, especially on the louder velocities, I'll often increase the attack time on a compressor and slow down the release to even out the sound. But in this instance, I used a Transient Master plugin to do that. Just squash off the front and then slow down the sustain so it kind of brings up the sound after that initial hit. As you can see, I'm a Pro Tools guy. I have been for 20 years. I would love to switch to a new DAW. It's not going to happen anytime soon. And although it has limitations, there are a few stock plugins that I really enjoy using. One of them is FilterGate, and I'll use it to add movement and motion to long sustained sounds like these bells. It helps to use an organic sound like the bells, but give it a synthetic quality. And even though it sounds like a synth pattern, you can still kind of connect it to that original sound. So I have it set to 1/8 notes, and I'm using the mouse to control the cutoff frequency, moving it up and down as the sound moves along. The sound is getting better, but still a little boring. So in this case, I reached for a pitch plugin, and one of my favorites is Soundtoys' Little Altar Boy. I went to the pitch, I raised it up an octave, the mix is all the way up. I added just a bit of drive to it so that when you, especially on the louder samples, when you adjust the cutoff frequency of the filter gate before the Little Altar Boy, you get some really interesting effects as you drive into the sound. If you watch me work or listen to my productions, you would think I was paid by Soundtoys to use their plugins. Echo Boy is on everything that I've ever done. In this instance, I have it set to a standard dotted 1/8 note delay just to add a little bit more movement to the sound. Here's the sound layered in with the flute and violin samples from the last video that I made. As you can see, the flute and violin sounds are not going through the same processing. So you can play them together, the flute and violin sounds build and decay, and then you can bring up the cutoff filter of the manipulated handbell sounds to add extra life to the track. Now normally I would put these on separate tracks in my DAW, but in a live situation you could see how that could come in handy. Here's a song I wrote using the handbell samples, the manipulated handbell samples, the flute and violin waves from the last video, and my felted upright piano. Thanks for watching. If you download these sounds and find them useful, I would love to hear what you come up with. Please share it with me. And if you would be so kind to do all the things that you have to do for a YouTube channel, hit the like button. I think there's a bell that you can click on, subscribe. All that stuff would help me out, and I will have more videos for you in the very near future.